Welcome, friends, to Reality Test. What is reality testing, you may ask? Well, it's something we all do every day, maybe with our loved ones over dinner, with coworkers at the water cooler, etc., when we check our subjective or personal emotions, thoughts, and so forth against objective or sort of more agreed upon fact-based reality. Although, because Dr. Ray and I, Dr. Kay, are social constructionists, we don't actually believe there's one true objective reality, but rather our own personal versions of it constructed in the context of relationships. But you get the idea. So here in Reality Test, we're going to be testing the castmate realities and the producer antics of our favorite reality TV shows against what we know as licensed psychologists about the reality out here, off of our TVs. We hope you'll join us as we attempt to reality test. Listen, y'all, we have a lengthy version of our disclaimer in the show description text, also in our old episodes, but we do ethically need to at least include part of it at the start of each episode. So here's our briefest version of the disclaimer. If you've heard it before, you can skip ahead 30 seconds, or for the old episodes, 2 minutes. So although we're licensed psychologists, psychotherapists, supervisors in the context of our professional roles, we are not acting as therapists in the context of this pod, neither for you nor for the reality castmates we discuss. We will give our opinions as our whole human selves, albeit supported by our psychological knowledge, and we will talk about diagnoses rather than assigning them, as we cannot ethically assign diagnoses without formal psych assessment. But both the opinions and diagnoses we discuss might easily be erroneous, as we don't personally know the folks in reality TV shows. That's it. Thanks, y'all. Now check out our campy theme song.
Are you feeling stressed? Your head's all messed? Well, let's forget all the rest. Fuck it, we're blessed. Cause it's time to talk reality test. Come with us. Let's reality test. Welcome to Reality Test. I'm Dr. Ray.
And I'm Dr. Kay. Feel free to check in and take a seat wherever you like. We've got some good business for you today. First of all, what a friggin' episode of The Bachelorette. We haven't even talked about that off mic at all, but what an episode.
OMG. Our two, our hero and our villain, if you will, Devin and, gosh, why am I forgetting his name?
Sam Mean.
Both went on one-on-one dates. Yeah, I am excited to get into that. I am excited to talk House of Dragon.
That's right. Tell us about that, Dr. Ray. What is our other show today?
We're discussing House of Dragon. Now, you in your earphones listening to us right now may be thinking, hey, this is a reality TV podcast. What are you doing? And you would be right. But I am here to say that this is the most excited I've gotten about anything but reality TV in a long time. This season of House of the Dragon is so good. The last season, I didn't think was very good. The time jumps really annoyed me. I didn't feel attached to any of the characters. I didn't like it at all. But decided to watch it again this season, in part based on Dr. Kay's recommendation that it was better. And man, was she right. And I'm obsessed. It's given me the highs of Game of Thrones. And I am just so happy to be back in this weird HBO money abroad world that is House of the Dragon. And I'm so excited to talk about it today.
Yes, I love it so much. I will say I was very hesitant at first. I was like, we're not readers. I don't know what we're going to contribute because it's a literary tactic kind of conversation. But Dr. Ray is so excited about it that I feel differently about it. I'm excited too. It's gotten me re-excited for even just thinking about the season because I've watched it as it's been coming out. And Dr. Ray watched a little bit of a binge to catch up a little bit just because she wanted to, frankly, but then it turned out it worked out well that we don't have another show to talk about too. But since she was binging it, she had all of this like excitement that was all at once, and it got me excited thinking about back on the whole season, and it's very fun. It was a fantastic season. I totally agree. And as I mentioned to you, Dr. A, it's sort of like the first season had to happen to like it pays off. Right? Like essentially you had to understand the history of their different age groups and such age periods in order for this season to really matter. Because now you care. Now you care about these characters quite a bit and you know them better and such. So you know their history. We care about Viserys, even though he's not even really in this season much and so forth. So yeah. Oh, what a delight. What a delight. So yeah, worth mentioning, we're not readers. We have not read the book. I watched the like after the episodes, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like some tidbits from that I might be unintentionally drawing from. But yeah, otherwise we just watched the show. So we're also worth mentioning what we're going to be talking about. So I've seen through the latest episode because I can't help myself. Sunday night is a vibe. I do the Sunday night HBO for my life. That's my lifelong journey. But then yeah, have to. But then, by the way, because the other one is The Jinx, which was so good. My husband and I used to be like, we're going to watch Bobby. We're watching Bobby tonight. Bobby Durst. But yeah,
I
so
loved The Jinx.
It was so good.
Oh my God, it was so good.
Yeah.
And he maybe confessed or whatever. There's some disparity about whether or not he actually confessed. But he's dead now, right?
Motherfucker is dead, and also 100% confessed in the bathroom, A, and then B in court. Like, what? Like in court, the DA was like, so would you lie on stand? He's like, oh yeah. He's like, so did you lie during this? And he goes like, oh yeah, of course. And he's like, so what did you lie about? He's like, I don't know. I was like, what the fuck? Like, so you're saying you lie, like you have no problem perjuring yourself. So basically, you did kill them, is what you're saying. Yeah, too much. Oh, yeah. He also said, would you lie if you killed her? And he said, yes. Bobby.
He is a vibe and a half. Yeah. I will say, there's so much about him we could go into. Maybe we will on a different show because it's reality.
It is reality.
Mm-hmm, yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. I listened to a Dateline episode that reminded me of that whole show. And I was like, whoa, he like maybe killed 3 people. Like,
oh yeah, he definitely did. I think there's no question. He admitted to dismembering number 2. So he clearly killed that one. And then why would he kill the second one if he wasn't trying to hide the first one? And then the third one is a similar thing where it's like she found out that he had killed her, or she knew all along, but she decided finally to come forward. So of course he would have a motive to kill her. I think all 3 are pretty clear. But did you watch the second season? I'm now realizing it sounds like. Oh, okay. My bad. Yeah. I spoiled a little bit.
I should. No, it's. Yeah. I think the Dateline episode did too.
Okay, yeah. Watch the second season.
I hate the trope of like villainizing cross-dressing, which I think happens.
Oh, that's awful. Yeah.
I know. Mm-hmm. That happens in Silence of the Lambs too, I think, or something.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I hate that trope. It's a bummer. Mm-hmm. And
well, that's on him because he tied it in. He made that part of his disguise. So fuck that. Yeah. Damn it, Bobby. Don't do that. Don't make it part of your disguise. Yeah.
And I wonder if there was a part of him that maybe really liked wearing women's clothes. And
that would be totally fine. Yeah. I like that about him, if that's true. And I think the part of him that chose to do that as a way of getting away with murder is less desirable for me. But I do love, if he likes that, and that's why he was doing it, fantastic. All about it. Yeah. And I know he was also doing it to hide. So that part, not great.
No, not our favorite guy. No. Fascinating show.
Yes. And my only point about it being that's part of HBO Sundays. And so the other thing, just really quickly to wrap that little piece nugget up there, is that we have, so I've seen it through episode 7 and Dr. Ray has seen through episode 6. So I will have my portions that I talked about today are actually from episode 7. So I will try not to make them spoilery, but there might be a little bit of spoiler alert worth mentioning up top here. And then Dr. Ray is going to have it be from the whole first 6 episodes, right?
Indeed. Yes.
Fabulous.
So that'll be fun. Yes. Yeah. Y'all, it's so good. If you have not watched House of the Dragon and you were like a little hesitant about the first season, watch this shit. It will bring you on highs. It reminds me, because Game of Thrones started like pre-Trump. It's like that pre-Trump optimism of like, damn, like good things can happen in the world. That's how this show makes me feel. But now we're fucking on Trump round 2. God damn it.
Yeah, but we're also on, there's a woman of color running for president.
Kamala. Vote for
we love you, Kamala.
Please.
Oh my God,
Trump
what a
debater.
Fucking history-making moment. Beyonce doing all of her campaign music. Excuse me, all of my dreams are coming true. That is just the most incredible thing. I can't even stand it. I hate that there's like this other side of it that's a potential, but just the fact that this is a potential is a huge moment in history. Huge moment.
Please, if there is a God, make Kamala president. Please, please.
Yeah, God is probably a black woman, so she will help.
Yes.
She will make Kamala president. Please and thank you. Yeah, fabulous. Great point. It's very like reminiscent, right? It's like sort of nostalgic to watch this show because it's reminiscent. House of the Dragons is reminiscent of Game of Thrones. And what good shows they both are in their own rights. But I definitely think that House of the Dragons does have some Thronesian episodes in this season for sure. There were a couple in the first season as well. The finale of the first season was very Thronesian. Like when they're standing out on the rocks where she gets crowned. Oh my God, it's so good. And Rhaenys is there too. Oh, I just love it. It gives me all the feels. I love Rhaenys so much. But yeah, so worth mentioning, there might be a couple spoiler alerts a little bit about House of the Dragons. So when we talk about House of the Dragons, we will start the sentence area with saying, this is about House of the Dragons, so that you have a second to fast forward. The other thing I will say is one more thing. Oh yeah, next week we will talk about House of the Dragons again, rather than another reality TV show, just because we don't have another one to talk about at the moment. But we're just going to talk about the finale. So this is sort of our like gearing up to then talk about the finale of House of Dragons next week.
Indeed. Now I'm realizing, is it House of the Dragon or House of the Dragons?
I think it's called a House of Dragons. House of the Dragons. I think it's plural. House of the Dragon? House of Dragons. House of the Dragons. Oh my God. I feel like I was saying it naturally a minute ago, but I forget.
It looks like it's House of the Dragon. I think I was calling it House of the Dragons. Gosh. So
No. You said dragon singular. I definitely was the one to bring it plural. You had it, my dear. The House of the Dragon. Fabulous. Thank you so much. I've totally been calling it House of the Dragons probably my whole life.
There are multiple dragons, so I think it's a appropriate title.
You know what?
It's not just one dragon.
There's also multiple houses now. There's green and black, so we should really be saying the Houses of the Dragons.
Yes, I think that would be the most appropriate title.
No, I feel like I did used to say House of the Dragon. Sorry, I just realized. I was like, no, that sounds right. I think I used to say House of the Dragon. I don't think it's my whole life, but I think today I said House of the Dragons for sure, by the way. That was not you. Okay, sorry. It matters to me. I wanted to make sure you know you did nothing wrong. Yeah, exactly. House of the Dragons. Dude, it's the War of the Dragons. It's the Dance of the Dragons. We are in it to win it here with these dragons. The dragon numbers are all this season is all about. Like, who has how many?
And it's good. It's solid action. It's not boring, which is important to your girl. Boring action, like my eyes glaze over, I die inside. This is tangible, understandable action, and I'm here for it with stakes. And it's emotional. Clear. Yes. Yeah. I get so confused when everybody's shooting at everybody, and it gets too much for me. My brain doesn't do well with all that stuff.
Exactly. Because a lot of like action movies come out of our like patriarchal, militaristic culture of our country, which is all about like violence, right? Like it's valorizing violence. Hello, Sam Mean. That's what you're all about as well. So like that patriarchal obsession with violence is also what we like the least about action movies, the two of us, because we're feminists. And therefore, the way that House of the Dragon does it, is that they don't valorize the violence so much as make it about moving the characters forward and moving the story forward. It's so good.
We love it. We are here for it. But before we get into all this, we should maybe have a check-in about what's on our minds and hearts this week.
Hello, Dr. Ray. Good to see you, my dear. My heart and mind are focused on Seattle, where Dr. Ray and I will be next week, which is very exciting. We're going for a psych conference, so it's not actually for anything related to the podcast or reality TV, but we will both be there anyway. So we're going to record the podcast in the same room for the second time. Mm-hmm.
Exciting.
Very exciting. Aww. I know, that'll be fun. So I'm excited. I'm excited about Seattle. I'm excited about being there with Dr. Ray and Dr. Ray's fiancé. And then I'm also excited about presenting about reproductive justice with my students. And so looking forward, and also have to like literally start looking forward and doing some packing and stuff. But there's a little bit of stress around the fringes, but mostly just excitement. How about you, dear Dr. Ray? What is on your heart and mind today?
Well, Dr. Kay got me more excited about it. I was feeling a little, it gets so political sometimes. It's depressing that a psychology conference can get so political and weird, but politics are everywhere. Power is everywhere. And it's sometimes annoying. And even my like, I don't like this is kind of a power move too, if I really think about it hard enough. Cause it's like, I'm too cool for this. I'm not engaging in it, when I'm sure parts of myself get activated by it. I'm very honest.
But see, that makes it not about being too cool, right? Like then that means you're not. It's because I think that is why you don't like it. It's because it is activating. So that doesn't mean you're too cool for it. It means that you don't want to be activated. That's a fair thing.
This is true. It does get my nervous system a little abound, and I'm working on chilling out my nervous system. So it's not what I'm going for. But Dr. Kay and I have decided that we're going to have some celebratory good times on Saturday, which I'm very much.
We'll hang out around the fringes of our such business-oriented moments. We will be hanging out together instead. And then also, some of the business-oriented moments that we can be there together for, we will be as well, which I'm looking forward to. Yeah.
Yay. It'll be exciting.
Yay. Mm-hmm. I've also never been to Seattle. Have you been to Seattle?
I have. I went for the first time last year just to visit a friend, and I really liked it. I don't think I'd live there, but the views are amazing. Like, it's a really pretty place. The mountains I'm like, whoa, it looks fake, honestly, when you look at the mountains. They do not look like real life.
That's so cool. I'm excited. Yeah, we've had some hot and muggy days here in New England, and so when I was talking to one of my colleagues, whom I'm going to be seeing in Seattle, this time it's a who lives in Seattle. She was saying like, oh, I'm sorry, I've been thinking about you with the weather being like this. I'm hoping the sun comes out. I was like, actually, that's fine if it doesn't. It's been a little hot. I'll be happy with a little bit of cloudiness. That's fine. It's been a little too much. But it's just surprising. My husband and I were talking about it last night. Like, we both have been here very many years and cannot remember a time of this many hot days in a row for this area. It's pretty whack. But there it is. Oh, I have some updates for you. So,
yes, please.
One is, have you heard that Sam Mean? So just as a refresher, friends, we're calling Sam M Sam Mean because that helps us remember him because he's mean. And then Sam N Sam Nice because that helps us remember him because he's a little bit nicer, although he will be no longer in the conversation after today. But yep. So Sam Mean, his family has been chit-chatting out in the world about him and talking about how unfair of an edit he got and da-da-da. I have to say, a lot of what he has said, I don't care how it's edited. It is still fucked up. I don't care. It doesn't matter. There's still, like Nick Vial, he talks about this. I really don't want to give him any extra airtime, to be fair, but just to say, he talks about this in actually conflicting ways. On the one, he talks about the idea that like the edit can't do everything for you. Like, you are still saying those things. It's not going to be completely da-da-da. And then he has also said, like, sometimes the edit does you dirty. So I get both. But in this case, I really agree with the idea that, like, he has said some of those things, period, end of story. And then how he acted on the one-on-one date, he acted that way, end of story. I don't care if he also acted another way in different moments. In the moments we saw, he still acted those ways, It
was gross.
Yeah, the violence, the way he's condescending. So I'm not about it, but I still feel for his family. I mean, maybe it's also him like trying, because he can't really come out and say that because then he looks silly. So I'm sure he also is activating his family to help. And I understand that. I also understand them being defensive of him. And I also still feel the same way about him. So hard pass. Next item, Jax Taylor. Have you heard about Jax Taylor?
He checked into rehab, right?
We love to see it. We love to hear it. Get it, Jax. Thank you for taking care of yourself and setting a good example for getting help.
Yeah.
As well, filming Valley number 2. Yeah.
So Jax.
And apparently there were police on site at his house a week ago or a week prior to going in. And I guess he went out on Tuesday. So like last week, there were police at his house, but his kiddo, Gage, and his wife or ex-wife or soon to be his separated wife, Brittany, were not there. So that's a good thing. I'm glad that they did not get traumatized by that. So there is a little bit of legal issue at hand as well. So wishing the best. The last thing is a more not a popular news item. This is a personal complaint and it relates to a larger complaint. But I was looking through Instagram as one would, and I found this ad for it's like a therapy site, I'm assuming. So listen to this. It says, things I thought were normal, but were actually unresolved trauma. 1, interrupting people or finishing their sentences because I'm thinking faster than they are speaking. 2, shaking my legs, clicking a pen, or fiddling with something in my hands. 3, becoming easily distracted when I find something boring. 4, leaving things I'm uninterested in to the last minute. and then trying to cram it all in within a short space of time because I think I work better under pressure. Other items, I was never on time. I could not stay focused at work. Okay, period. I'm going to stop right there. What? Like, so multiple things here. Sure, absolutely. That could be unresolved trauma. And it could also very easily more likely be ADHD. And it could also very likely be fucking normal. Those are also normal things. You know what I mean? Like fiddling with a pen, not abnormal. That could be just a regular old person thing to do. Same thing with like not being on time. Same thing with being messy. Those are things that at extremes could be symptoms for sure. And if they're symptoms, they could be a number of different things. Some of those items could also be something like OCD in a certain way. It could be like hoarding could look like it's messy, whatever. So there's different things that could be relevant to that. It definitely does not mean absolutely it's unresolved trauma. Sure, it could be. It doesn't mean it definitely is. And so that kind of advertisement on Instagram is so fucking upsetting to me. I hate the idea of it seeming like, oh my God, so I must have unresolved trauma that I just don't even know about. Like, no. I don't want that to be out there when all of those things could just as likely be normal things to do and be doing. And I just hate it. It made me so angry. I took screenshots of it. Like, why? Why do I have this on my phone now? But I just needed to because I was like, I need to talk about this. It's upsetting. This happens. I don't like it. It's like sort of it's called like pop psychology to folks who are not psychologists. I know Dr. Ray knows this, but it's called pop psychology when people take psychology and make it sort of like popular or like something that anybody can digest. So I understand trying to advertise for an app. Absolutely. And also that is disturbing. I don't want that. That should not be happening. And in advertising for an app, you should not be making people feel like things that are normal are symptoms.
Absolutely. I agree completely. The over pathologizing of normative behaviors is something that continues to be very concerning to me because I think we have to acknowledge, we as psychologists, we as human beings, that a lot of behaviors are actually just behaviors that humans engage in. Sometimes they're not. And a big indicator is if these behaviors are causing you extreme amounts of distress that are negatively impacting your life. If you're like fiddling with a pen and you're kind of chilling and you haven't really thought about it until this advertisement, it's probably not that deep for you.
Right. If you're not having problems at work, you're not having problems at home, you're not having legal problems, you're not having problems with sleep, you're not having problems, right? Like if you're functioning at a normal rate and you're fine with how you're functioning, then don't worry about it, And again, kind of, even if it is a symptom, if it's not bothering you and you're not bothered, then don't worry about it. It's just like, I hate that it could be causing worry where it doesn't need to be. If it's helping someone recognize there is a problem they didn't know they had and it is causing impairment, great. But that's not what that ad is going to do. That ad is not helping someone realize they have unresolved trauma. That person probably just already knows they have unresolved trauma and then is like, okay, maybe those things are connected. I'll talk to my therapist about it or whatever. But I just don't, it's just, no. And frankly, if you have unresolved trauma, I don't think an app is the way to move. I think the move is a therapist, So, yeah. Thank you for listening.
Very well said. Oh, that's so upsetting.
Is that upsetting?
Yes. Thank you for sharing and bringing attention to some of the things that people might be seeing on their Instagram that might be messing with their heads a little bit.
Yeah, TikTok too, right? Like I recently got on TikTok for the sake of our app. I am not of the generation of TikTok, so that is a brand new thing in my life. And I found the mental health hashtag for TikTok is wild. It is so wild. There is a lot of really triggering stuff on there and like people talking about suicide. And I just honestly, I was like, whoa. So I don't know. People are talking about some dark shit these days. And some of it is pretty inappropriate. So don't always trust everything you see on social media about psychology. I would definitely talk to a therapist, if not your therapist that you already have. Talk to a therapist about it before taking anything to heart. It's like, right, it's like, of our generation, it was more about Google with Dr. Med or whatever the fuck. What is that called?
Oh, yeah, WebMD or whatever.
WebMD, thank you, yes, WebMD. It's like that. And frankly, that's not really our generation. That's also younger than us, but it is also sort of adjacent to our generation in that's where we were seeing the biggest fear areas. And now it's TikTok and Instagram. And I just want to extend the same concerns we have about WebMD to any social media site talking about mental health, any advertisement talking about mental health, any magazine talking about mental health, any radio station, anything. Think critically about it. Ask somebody who's a psychologist before taking it to heart.
Excellent. Very well said. And I would say WebMD. Maybe I'm being defensive of my own generation, but at least it's a few pages as opposed to like 30 seconds or a picture. But yes, don't diagnose yourself on WebMD. But I've gotten some good info on WebMD. Like,
no, that's
brings
fair.
me
That's
into
fair.
my medical appointments more empowered. And I am not a medical doctor who can diagnose a heart condition or something like that.
I love what you said right there. That's exactly what it is. If you want to use something you see on social media as a way of coming into an appointment more empowered, excellent. Excellent way to use it. Just like WebMD, that's a great way to use WebMD. You're not using it as the whole kit and caboodle. It doesn't replace a doctor's visit, but it helps you go into a doctor's visit with some language or some ways to ask about it rather than assuming that it's right. And I think if people do that with therapy sessions, excellent. I don't mind. I don't mind if a client comes in and says, hey, I saw this on TikTok. That doesn't bug me at all. Like, you know how there's a trope of like doctors being like, oh my God, people always say WebMD, da da da. Like, it's sort of a trope because frankly, I think probably medical doctors too are like, yeah, that's fair, sometimes. But there's a trope of them being like, oh my God, WebMD again. I don't feel that way at all. Someone comes in and talks about TikTok. I'm like, great question. Not at all the truth. Not at all what's happening. But thank you so much for asking. I'd much rather you ask and we talk about it.
Then you assume something's true if it's not. Or maybe you are onto something and now you're sharing something that you weren't before, which is also cool.
Yeah, exactly. Even if it was true, I'd be like, great. I don't mind it at all. I would much rather folks bring it in. So, all right, here's our little learning corner as our update here.
Yay! Love it. Thank you for sharing all of those updates. And
well, thank you so much.
More positive than others, I would say.
I would also say that. And thank you so much for listening and being with me through this journey of updates. Well, how about we do a journey of segments next, which we'll start with If Producers Were Psychologists. Yes. And refresh, just in case anyone skipped ahead to this moment, we're talking about The Bachelorette, which is season 21. And we're talking about episode 4. We're also talking about The House of the Dragon, and we're talking about episodes 1 through 7. So, Dr. Ray, if producers were psychologists of either of those shows, what aspect of that show would look more like what?
Don't make that Jenn go bungee jumping. It was clearly like Sam Neen was being like patriarchal and an asshole. Mm-hmm. It was clear that the producers wanted her to do the thing because that's what they always do on those dates. They have to do the thing. And that lady who was up there with them was like, do it. And I was like, oh, it's just, let her be. She's clearly going through something. It was probably that she was being impacted by the producers too. It just felt like the producers really wanted that bungee jump to happen. She didn't fucking want to. And I hated it. I hated watching that whole thing for multiple reasons, including the like obvious producer influence.
Total producer antics. I totally agree. And then I also felt at other moments that the woman was being more supportive than fucking Sam was. Like, I think he was a nightmare in that scenario, a literal nightmare. He laughed at her, made fun of her. He then was pushing her when she wasn't ready. He told her the way he was talking to the camera about it was disgusting. She's going to regret it. You don't fucking know, dude.
He's an idiot.
I hated it. And she was so spot on. She was like, he doesn't see it. He doesn't get it. You're right. Stick with that feeling. You know what I mean? Stick with your gut. Because even when he apparently turned to the corner, he was saying, just don't do it then. Seriously, just don't do it. That's still not supportive. That's not the same thing as being like, I totally get it. Don't even worry about it. Like, yeah, I get that he's saying you don't have to do it if you don't want to do it. But he wasn't even really saying that. He just said, don't do it. Seriously, don't do it. He just kept saying that. Almost like it almost feels, I still don't like it, It's like, fine.
Like he has
someone
to be
being
in control.
Fine, don't do it. Yeah, that too. Very
and he only softened because she cried. It's like his brain knows what to do when a woman cries. Then he can be the man in the position of comforting, which makes him feel good. And but still he didn't understand any of what came before that and what he did wrong. That was not addressed.
I'm going to go out on a limb. Yeah, sorry, as well. Go. Finish first.
And as I'm sure we'll continue to talk about, like Jenn didn't follow up on it, or at least we didn't see it. And that's where I think her maybe growth could be in the future. When she notices these things that are excellent points and excellent observations, but then she kind of, he comforted me, we're good. That's
Yeah, I totally actually have a point about that a little bit later too. So I'm glad you brought that up. It is a really good point. And it's a good point of discussion for sure. The other thing I would say is I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that even if she was his girlfriend permanently and he wasn't on camera, I can imagine someone crying and he still wouldn't be good with it. I can imagine him being the kind of person that would be like, oh, you don't have to cry about that. Why are you crying about that? That feels like that would be a thing he would say because he doesn't get it. He doesn't understand. He's not good at perspective taking, in my opinion. So I think that would show if he wasn't on camera as like actually being pretty shitty even when people cry. And I totally agree. He knew what to do on camera when she cried, that was the one time he could skip into gear a little bit there. He was terrible. I'm over it. I hate it. I'm not over it because I'm really mad about it. But yeah, great fucking example. The other thing, by the way, just as a side note, I think it wasn't bungee jumping technically because it wasn't it was like a guided jump. It was like it only you stay slow. You know what I mean? I don't know how to explain it, but you're more hooked up, so then you kind of go down more slowly than bungee jumping. But it definitely was bungee adjacent, which she definitely said she did not want to do. So shitty.
Fair enough. Yes. But what about you, Dr. K? What was your producer moment?
Okay, fabulous. I also just want to one more side note say about that
Yes.
I hated that she did an adrenaline junkie date with Sam Mean because adrenaline junkie dates are always really impactful. They have a ton of impact, which might have also been why she switched gears at some point because when you do something terrifying with someone else, you bond a lot more closely. Those folks always do well in seasons. So when she went on that date with Marcus, I was like, yeah, I feel good about this because it's Marcus. I feel like it's a good thing. But with Sam Mean, no, don't do that. I hate that she went on that with him. Not her choice, but I didn't like it. Ugh, boo. Right? It's like they want to try to keep the villain around because they knew by this point he was a villain. They were well aware. So that's a producer choice I did not like. Great example. Mine was actually about Matt at the end because I would say 90% sure that the whole thing is a setup. Like I don't even just mean like producers negotiated with him for this to happen. Like I think this was planned from the start. So here's my theory. Obviously, let me say this first. I know nothing about this. It could be total bullshit. I could be absolutely way off my rocker. Here's what I think is, and here's why. Here's my theory and why I think it. So I think early days when they had Jenn on the first season she was on, they wanted her to maybe do well to become the Bachelorette because they knew they needed an Asian Bachelorette bad, which they did, and they were right. And so then when I think she stayed longer than I think that she would have, just based on her connection with Joey. I didn't think they really had much with one towards the end of her time there. She ended up going home kind of early. So then I think when she went home early, she went back to Matt. And I think they dated. And I think they dated again. And I think they said, yeah, I think they dated again. And I think they said, I love you again as well. Exactly. Mm-hmm. They were planning to go to weddings together. Like, what are we talking about here? Like, clearly they were not just friends again. So I think she went back to Matt fully, right? Yeah. Back to Matt fully. So then they might have even asked her to be Bachelorette, even though she went home sort of early. I think she said, no, I'm with Matt now. I'm dating someone. So then I think they tried Maria and they even like went for a little bit with Maria. Maria ends up saying no. So then they didn't have a lot of choices, especially if Daisy also did say no. So they went back to Jenn and said, okay, we know you're dating Matt, but we are so tied to having a new, our first ever Asian Bachelorette that we would be willing to have you become Bachelorette, bring Matt in halfway through the season, and then you would get the choice of maybe having him win. And you would get to choose him against other guys. Like you might even choose not to have him, but you would at least have him in the mix. Would you then do it? And then she had to ask Matt and sort of convince him to be in on it. So then at that point, because they start planning the next season way back, right? So then at that point, they had time to figure out how can we sell Matt to the public. Sure, there have been seasons where they've brought back people that were on previous seasons, but there's never been a season where they brought in a nobody. That is a huge risk. To bring in somebody who is not already tailored for reality TV is a huge fucking risk. And you can tell because he's terrible. He's terrible.
His suit was just not a good suit.
Everything about him, it was horrific. So like that's a huge risk and they knew that. So they would only do that if there was a reason. And I really think the reason is that they promised her they could at least give him a shot because she was already saying I love you to him again and they were dating. So then part of what they planned from day one was, okay, that means we need to go abroad early. We go abroad early to the other side of the world so that then part of how we get America to buy in is we say he came halfway across the world on his own dime because they really emphatically pushed that on us. And it would look weird if they had just happened to go to Australia now. Like if they had just gotten there, then people would be like, what the fuck? So no, they went to Australia week 2. They never do that. They don't fucking ever go halfway across. It wasn't week 2. They started moving week 2 so that they could get across the world by week 4. They never go that early. I did think it was weird. When they went abroad week 2, I was like, whoa, So I think that was part of selling the narrative of him coming across the world on his own time, which also is a weird thing that he sold that to us, that Jesse was like, this is weird. We never do this. Like the face to camera moment was very out of place. I think they've done these moments before and haven't made as much of a fuss. So I think it shows that they were trying to like, see, like, this is really cool. Like he's worth mentioning. He's worth having on the show. So then my last cue for this. Oh yeah. Also not the last one yet, but also him arriving at the hotel. That was bullshit. That was not how he got to the hotel. No. That whole scene was a false bullshit thing. He was already there. He didn't look tired. He didn't look like he just met Jesse. He was like, thanks, Jesse. Like they knew each other. Let's be real. That was not his first meeting of Jesse. Stop the madness. So then they're like, oh, if you want to talk to her, you got to talk to her now. So that way we would be like, oh, that's why he's so nervous, is like he just got off a plane. Like that's why he's bad at talking. You know what I mean? Like so that we'd give him forgiveness because he just got there. Bullshit. So then we cut to when he gets there talking to her. First thing he says to her, you weren't expecting me. Were you expecting someone else? What? What the fuck is that? So like that shows he did think she was expecting him. Right? Like that means he did think she knew he was coming. So that means they both knew he was coming, by the way. That means we already knew that. Then he talks about how he was looking forward to the trip to Colombia together. So now we know they were dating before, which is already weird. So then she has to make a concerted effort during the conversation with him to be like, we were just friends and she kept being like, what? Oh my God, Matthew. And then he blew it. He blew it in their conversation. 3 or 4 times he blew their cover because she's trying to make it seem like we're just friends. Oh my God, Matthew, you love me? What are you doing here? And he was like, yeah, I told you that before. Like, did you clock? Like, there were moments over and over he kept doing that.
I interpreted it differently I didn't interpret it as like this was pretty, but you're probably right. My interpretation in that moment was they were clearly dating and she's trying to downplay the fact that they were dating because that doesn't look great for her. That was kind of my read on it, but that might be the wrong read. Like she's trying to cover this up because it doesn't look great for her. Yeah, which should still be true with your narrative. And
exactly. She's downplaying it. And he blew it, right? Because I think if they were both trying to hide it from producers, I think he would have done a better job. I think he knows producers know and are in on it, and that's why he didn't really know how to play it because he didn't know what she was doing. He didn't know what the plan was. Like, what is the narrative? Like, are we telling them that, or whatever? So then when she kept trying to be like hint at him, at one point when he blows it, you see her next face as she looks pissed. She's like trying to figure out what to do because he blew it. So that's her way of communicating to him, like, we can't, that's not what we do here. We're not doing that or whatever. And I felt like he kept trying to figure it out. And like, you'd see him get stern again and be like, well, so like, this is what, you could see him trying to figure out how to play it, which I agree could also be him reacting to her downplaying the fact they dated. But it felt so much bigger and more like people were involved. The way he said, I love you. And she said, Matthew, and like laughed nervously. And she did it a couple times. He laughed. He was like, I do. Because it was like him nervously laughing, like realizing, oops, like, she's acting like we haven't said that yet. But then he ended up saying, I have told you that.
I know. I liked that moment when she was like, when he was like, I have, because it must be weird to have someone who you love, like doing this thing. And the producers, if this was their goal, should have done a better job, like making him a little more TV ready and saying, okay, this is the play here.
Or is it that they're using like how you saw it as their cover? Like they're using it that, oh no, it's just that she's downplaying that they dated. Like, and so then it's good that he's like this, like it's actually playing into their hand because then it looks like, oh, it's just that she's downplaying that they dated. He is green. We had no part of this. We couldn't have prepped him. Like we weren't involved. Look how green he is, and sort of like being able to sell the like, that they weren't involved and it was just her, but they had to have been involved. Like regardless of what happened, they were involved deeply. Like even if it is that they did, were downplaying that they dated, they were involved to some major degree. They had to have known the history of between them. They have to do that, especially bring on a nobody. So, if I were a psychologist producer of that show, I think what would I have done differently? So part of my first thought was like, right, I would have hidden it better. And then I was like, no, because that's selling a different narrative. Like the fact that he's clunky is selling what you're seeing, which is like she's hiding that they're dating. So like that kind of makes sense. But then I was kind of thinking maybe I still And by the way, the other thing is the fact it's so obvious kicks up conversation, right? Everybody's talking about this. So no matter what, even if it sells what you thought or it sells what I thought, it's still kicking up conversation. So like in some ways I kind of get that too. So I'm like, would I have done anything differently? I think honestly, I think the one thing I would have done differently was making it about them having dated right before, because I think even if that's part of what she's quote unquote downselling or whatever, downplaying to be able to sell why he's awkward and blah, 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 even if that's what their narrative is what you saw, I think that's a risky narrative that they dated right before she came on Bachelorette. That's something that gets a lot of people out. Yeah, that puts a lot of people out of the show. So I don't know. I think that one part I would have changed a little bit. I do believe strongly that this whole thing is a setup, which means that they don't want us to know that. So like if they don't want us to know that it's a setup and that it's meant to, like I think she's going to keep him. But if she doesn't, then obviously it's irrelevant. Or honestly, it could still be true and she decided she didn't like him as much as the other guys now, because that's possible too.
Oh, yeah.
And she really could decide to let him go. But if it wasn't a setup and it planned all the way around by this whole group, then I would think. By the way, let me just say, that's also why I think Maria was chosen for a short time. Like, I don't think she was their first choice. I really think they wanted Jenn because I think they wanted Jenn from day one before they even knew Maria. But when Jenn said no, they were like, well, everyone loves Maria. Let's give it a try. And that's why I think they had them give Maria tries, because Jenn had to have said no. And Jenn would only say no if she was dating someone. Okay, anyway, I'm just like giving you my little tidbits. But yeah, I know this is super long. I'm sorry. I'm almost done. But I think I just would have changed what I would have tried to make the narrative look like. And I would try to really get them to not, because they also have the choice of what to include. They did not need to include the clip of her saying or him saying, so it's clear they're trying to build that narrative that she's trying to hide that they dated. So like if you're going to
Why would they do that to her?
Because it explains why he is acting the way he's acting. Like it explains why there's mismatch. It's not the producers. They weren't involved. It's because she's trying to downplay. And yeah, it does blame her, but it gives them a way to work him in. And it lets us be endeared to him because he's getting the short end of the stick with her acting like that and him not being a part of it. I think, there's benefits to it. And I agree, though, ultimately, I don't think the benefits outweigh the risks of that narrative. I think there should have been a different narrative they were pushing to hide the fact that they're setting it up. If this is true, this is all like if, right? This is an as if. But if what I think is true, I think they should have picked a different way to make it make sense and to endear him to us, because they have to endear him to us for sure. But it shouldn't have been that she's trying to hide that they dated right before and that he's giving it up, because that looks so bad.
And if it's being done at the expense of Jenn, where normally the Bachelor or Bachelorette gets that hero arc, right? And this is your first Asian Bachelorette. Like, why would you try to do her dirty in this way? It really doesn't make her look good. Which is annoying.
And exactly. And even if that's true, like say I'm wrong and it's true that she's trying to downplay the fact they dated and he is giving it up, they didn't have to show that. They still could have not shown that. And I think they wouldn't have if it wasn't another benefit. And I think the benefit has to be hiding their game. But I think, so I think that's all choices they're making for a reason. But yeah, I totally agree. I wish they'd picked a different way to do it. I don't like that it blames her.
Not good at all.
I know. Okay, so that is my full spiel. I will tell you it's a lot. It's very possible I'm wrong. I'm aware of that. And I also feel pretty strongly about it. There are a lot of tidbits that point me to that. And I think there's nothing I've saw. That's excellent. There's nothing I've seen that has pointed me in the opposite, like in a way of thinking that can't be true. So I'm looking out for it. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I think the guys are going to be pissed. It usually, someone mentioned like it notoriously has never done well to bring someone back. That's not true. Mm-hmm. Blake Moynes won after he was brought back late.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Huh.
So I don't know. We've never had a newbie, and that's a risk. So, like, again, that's why I think it has to be something bigger. It has to be a bigger scheme here, right? Like, they're obsessed right now with, like, this has never happened. So, like, this could be the thing that's never happened. She brought back a noob.
Yep. They always like a new angle. Oh, fascinating. Huh. Yeah. I'm excited to keep watching for this now. This is so interesting.
Me too. I know. I listened to my podcast to see if anyone else just like totally thinks this as much as I do. I haven't heard anybody as sold on it. I did see or hear one podcast mention they thought there was something fishy, but they didn't know what. And so this is my thought about what.
Ooh, exciting.
We shall see. Yes.
We shall.
So what would you say for, oh, no. This is you ask me. I will stop.
Yes. No, you are fine. So we spotted therapy. Did you see therapy? And if so, how did it map on to what you think of therapy?
Okay, so this is, I think, maybe my only reference to House of the Dragon. No, I have an honorable mention for House of the Dragon a little bit later. But for the segments, this is my only strictly House of the Dragon one. And then I have an award as well. But for my segment, I'm going to talk about this in a way that's less spoilery. But you've seen that Miss Arya is in the mix. Because she's been in the mix for several episodes. Okay, fabulous. Love it. You find out in episode 7 that she has had some trauma, big T trauma. We find out what that is. So I will just say that. And so what I would say about therapy is it felt like she has been to therapy, even though it did not exist at this time or in this world, because she had processed it a lot and figured out how it affected her. And she stands in her power now. Like you can see that already just from what you know about her. She has post-traumatic growth, right? Like just the way that she is. I don't want to spoil the next moment because it's an incredible moment. I will say the next moment felt like an inappropriate reaction given what she had just disclosed.
I've seen this. I thought this was episode 6, but maybe
it is. Oh, good. Okay, good. Thank God. No. I watched 6 and 7 the same sitting, so that probably was 6. Thank God. So she's been through some fucking trauma. It is upsetting. Yes. I hated hearing about it. I loved how she talked about it. I loved that she was able to be like, here's what I took from it. Here's the fucked up shit. Here's how I am now. She stood in her power. I loved Rhaenyra's reaction to go hug her. Incredible. Yes, please go hug her. That's exactly the right direction to go with that. What I did not like was kissing her. She just disclosed sexual violence trauma to you. Yeah, Don't kiss her. That's
a really good point. That is a really good point. I was pumped about the kiss in general.
I know.
Like it was.
Me too.
It's conflicting because it was a really like steamy kiss.
Loved it. Loved their kiss. Wish it was any other scene.
Yeah, wish you were so right. What was said before that, it felt like Rhaenyra was reacting to the I stand behind you because I believe you're genuine, but in that was not thinking about what she had just disclosed. That was pretty fucked up. Yeah, exactly. That's a really good point.
And I felt like the hug was also about what she'd been through. Like I felt like the hug was also like a support. You're right. Yeah. But I do think you're right that she did just say, I'll stand behind you, which I like. And I'm glad they at least had that in there because it's a little bit more like a little bit hedgy, if you will. But it's still, it was inappropriate, frankly. It's abuse of power as well.
Yeah.
So, icky. Right. And I love Rhaenyra. And I love the kiss. So, conflicting feelings. Mm-hmm.
You're absolutely right. Oh, man, that's a bummer. It's because it's like that is could be like a really cool like power couple of two women and that it started in this way. It would have been nicer. You're right. Maybe if they held the one, waited for another scene and then started the sexual tension, they could have kind of built out that narrative a little more. Damn.
Oh, perfectly put. Exactly what you could have done differently, producers. And I think also like, build up to it. And I think she could have said a little bit. I think just a hug would have cut it for me. If she just gave her a beautiful hug and then they like cut the scene, I would have been like, that's perfect. It shows that she didn't know what to say. All she could do was just give her support in like the area of a hug. I think it is abuse of power no matter what because she's the queen. However, I think there was a world in which she could have had a conversation with her about it and been like in a different scene, definitely a different scene. But okay, trauma scene happens, hug happens, it's over. We're in a different scene. And Rhaenyra says to her, I'm your queen. I would want to know for sure that like this is something that you would do even if I wasn't, and I'm interested in you, right? Or they kiss and then they say that maybe, it's somewhere in the mix. Like I think if that happened, I would feel much better about it. But obviously, we're talking way long ago. There's incest. There's all sorts of shit. So what are you gonna do about it? But yeah. If it were today.
Handled it better. Damn. Damn. Especially because Rhaenyra, if anyone is getting like the hero arc in this show, it's her. Mm-hmm. And what a great opportunity to do better than we've seen men do in the past. And it seems like we're falling into the same tropes. Damn. That's such a good one. Ugh. I'm bummed now. I was like living for that scene and then
it was so good. I still love it. It's still a great scene. I love it. I love that Miss Arya is empowering her. Talk about mutual empowerment. Holy shit. It's so good. Shameless plug for my videos on feminist friendships because it includes mutual empowerment. Go to check them out wherever you watch anything, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. But the mutual empowerment was gorgeous. I think the many parts of it were gorgeous. And frankly, the kiss was steamy. So it's just like it's a side note, sidebar, and it doesn't take away from the acting is incredible in this show. Incredible.
So good.
And I will say there is a lot of feminism. We talked about this as well as being a part of why we'd want to talk about it on the show. There is a lot of feminism. I will also note the book itself is extremely sexist. Again, I haven't read it. I've heard a lot about it and about the changes that have been made, and it is extremely sexist. So I'm very glad that they have made it more feminist in their production of the show.
Yes, very well said. Well,
How about you?
My therapy moment, and this is something I think that we've talked about before, is thinking that maybe Devin has gone to some sort of therapy. I thought when he shared more about his mom and acknowledged the parts of himself that he didn't like growing up and how she like really helped him through that, I thought he showed a lot of self-awareness. And because he could talk about how great his mom is without recognizing his own journey of growth. He didn't need to do all that, but he was willing to paint himself in a less favorable light, which to me shows that he can continue to grow and adapt and change, which I think is so important. And it endeared me to him. It was a really sweet date that they had. Very different than the date with Sam Mean, I will say.
Factually different. I totally agree. Different vibe, different feeling. He was so much more supportive. Thank you, Devin, for being a good human and showing her how that feels. I totally agree. That's a great item. Because I also think even Jenn and her response to him, same thing. Felt very therapy, post-therapy kind of a conversation. It was great.
Yes. And that's the kind of thing, too, where like when one person shows that sort of vulnerability and humanness, it allows another person to do so as well, which is a form of mutual empowerment. We
exactly that.
Yeah.
Woo-woo. Mutuality, mutual empathy. It was all flying around. It was gorgeous. I also love that he asked a question. Yes, sir. Yes. I think the way that she was responding with some of her stuff, he easily could have responded again with some of his stuff. And I usually spot that because I actually get annoyed by that because I'm like, okay, if you're sharing and then now she's sharing, let her share, you know. But he actually asked her a question. I was like, exactly what you should do. Thank you so much. Well done, sir.
Oh,
loved it.
Love it. Love to see it. Great job, Devin.
Yes. Probably been to therapy and we love to see it. And if you haven't, good for you for doing that on your own. And also maybe still get some therapy because everybody can benefit from it.
Including him, for sure. He's still got some growth moments. And I'm confident that he would actually be willing to grow, which is cool.
Yeah. No, for sure. Exactly. That's really a key thing for being in a relationship. If we're not both growing, neither of us is. We love to see it.
Totally.
So how about this next item, which is an or? So there's two different things you could have chosen between. One is if one of our clients said XYZ, what would we say in response to that? Or you might think of it as if a person came into therapy with XYZ presenting concern, what would you as a psychotherapist or couples counselor address? Or how?
Excellent. So I mentioned the thing about Jenn, like seeing all these signs that these red flags, if you will, but then one good thing happens and then she's able to like kind of push all that other stuff aside. And I would love to know where that comes from because she was so spot on. The immediacy of like recognizing what was happening with Sam M was truly impressive. I was like, yep. And for her, it's like one good move then erased all that, which I think can get folks into dangerous situations and is a very human thing to do. But I think I would want to ask more about that. My second thing is Game of Thrones with the Rhaenyra and Alicent scene where Rhaenyra is like, I'm going to shoot my shot here one more time. Maybe Alicent can be reasoned with. Rhaenyra does this thing. It's kind of funny because I think Rhaenys was like, if you're a woman in this, or no, it might have been, her steamy now lover. What is this? Massaria said like, if you're a woman and you get like, no one will notice you if you dress down. But Rhaenyra tried to have a conversation with Alicent and it kind of came out in the wash that they both made a mistake and it was kind of a misunderstanding, which is super interesting, right? And I think Alicent starts to realize that. Rhaenyra starts to realize that. Alicent, I think even in knowing that, is at a space where she's not willing to back down and she wants to double down on this, even though it's clear that maybe her children are not the best leaders.
She's known it. She's known it for sure. She also, I think her point is it's too late.
Yeah, I think, and this can happen in history. I heard this on the Ringer podcast. I'm not the first person to say this, but like, right, that these big mistakes can happen and you kind of can't go back. But I found myself wondering in this moment, could she go back? Or would it create such instability amongst the town folk? Like, could she say, we're going to bend the knee? But I guess she's not in power. So in some ways it is too late. But it stunk. It was so sad to see.
Yeah. Ugh. Talk about like lack of empowerment. Like the moment she says, like back when Viserys dies, and she says to her dad and everyone else, okay, he told me that Aegon should be king. She realizes she's in no power at all because her dad was like, yep, we were already planning that. Like regardless, Viserys could have said nothing and we were going to go for Aegon anyway. So she realized back then she basically had no say. So I think even at this point, she's like, it's too late. Like I wasn't even really the reason that Aegon is king. It was more my dad and the plan that made him king anyway. But yeah, she didn't really clock that fully. There's a good arc. She has a good arc. I think she's interesting. I think Alicent and Rhaenyra's friendship is super interesting. I've loved that element of it. And I hate how nasty she was to Rhaenyra. I went back and watched a couple episodes from season 1 just for funsies. And when they were adults, she was such an asshole. And I forget that. She was nasty to her. And like having her come right after she had the baby, Joffrey, and bleeding all over the floor, which is like a precursor for having a miscarriage, which I didn't really clock at the time. I mean, it's just so much. There's so much. It's sad.
Their friendship felt... I was glad to see Rhaenyra maybe come into her sexuality because their friendship felt queer to me. And I don't think that was just me. I think it was like sort of on purpose. It felt like it was a part of it. But yeah, who knows what in an alternate world could have happened between the two of them.
Exactly. There's a lot of room for different kinds of love dyads, which is fun.
That is indeed. But what about you? What was, and my client moment about that, I should say, is I would want to explore with Alicent, like, is it too late? And how do you feel about this? But I think in talking to you, I think it really is probably too late to go back.
And not because of her, which is sad. Yeah. I think she would want to too. I really think you're right about that. I think there's a part of her that feels super conflicted, like she would want to go back. Poor friends, poor families and friends in this world. Fabulous example. Mine were, I had two. So, and then I had an honorable. Oh no, I had two honorable. Okay. Anyway, let me just start. I was thinking Marcus. So on the group date, he had the one-on-one, and in the confessional, he says, it feels selfish to ask someone to carry these burdens with me. Like, wow, so vulnerable, so sweet, really, really had a lot of impact for me. I would want to do RCT, so relational cultural theory. If you don't know us by now, and that's the theory we use, then where have you been? Or if you're a new listener, I'm so sorry I said that. Welcome. We do relational cultural theory as our theory of choice. Relational cultural theory, I would do a frame of relational cultural theory, but I would do trauma work, obviously. So I would want to impart upon him that it's not selfish necessarily. We need to be able to depend on other people. We have dependency needs. And you do still want to get informed consent from your partner. Like you still want your partner to know before you marry them, say, that they will also be carrying this with you. And I think he's already gotten that from Jenn. He did it early days with her, which I was very impressed by. I think that's a very important part of it. So now he doesn't have to have that sort of worry. She knows that's a part of the dynamic. I would also want to talk to him about as part of RCT. So obviously the trauma work means we would just dig deep into the trauma, looking through a trauma narrative, doing the expressive, emotional expression, exploration stuff, kind of unpacking some of the beliefs that came out of the traumas, etc. Then I would also want to look at his cultural background, both in terms of his sort of racial, ethnic, cultural background and his families, but then all families, both sides of his parents' families, but then also his military cultural background. There is a culture associated with military. So I would want to look at that. And him going from a place where he had all this brotherhood to being alone in the hospital for months or years. I mean, that is traumatizing on its own. So I would want to look at that quite a bit. My honorable mentions are for Massaria for the trauma work based on what she shared with us. Absolutely. Yes. All day long. I'd be digging into that. And then the other one I was thinking was for Corlys and Alan and his other son, the dragon rider. Fuck. Don't listen. So Corliss and Alan, Corliss and his sons, I would want to look at ecosystemic structural family therapy because that's a common family therapy for Black families. Exactly. And it looks at all sorts of things like systemic, societal layers, the ecosystem, if you will, of a person. So like their family level, the cultural level, we'd be looking at things like cultural oppression of Black families while also looking at their families coping and so forth. So I think that could be quite helpful for Corliss's family. So that's where I landed on those pieces right there.
Love it. Very, very excellent pieces to share.
Did you clock that, by the way? Do you know that Alan is Corliss's son? Did you get that? That was sort of subtle. That we already know that before episode 7. It was like, did you recognize when Rhaenys like looked at his face and was like, "Wow, your mother must have been really beautiful"? And then she says to Corliss,
I did not clock that. Nope.
Okay. Yeah. She says to Corliss, like, she's like, I knew who he was or whatever. Because she's all sassy because it was his son with a woman that's not Rhaenys.
Oh, got it.
He's the one who saved him. Yeah. Alan's the one who saved him. Right.
Gotcha.
You know,
okay.
Yeah. So he's his son. And I clocked it back then because I was like, what the fuck does she mean by that? She was like, sure, your mom must have been becoming. And I was like, okay, let's see. Or comely. She said comely, which stood out to me because I thought comely meant. And then I was like, no, in Shakespeare, comely does mean beautiful. I thought it meant like sort of just like normal, you know, but it actually means beautiful. And so then I was thinking, because I heard that word and got caught up on the word, I then got caught up on the moment. And so then when I was caught up on the moment, I tried to unpack it a little bit. And then I figured out that probably means it's his son. And then we hear it a little bit referenced in the after the episode thing. So
fascinating.
Yeah, kind of fun. Yeah, there's some of those moments where you're kind of like, whoa, there's a whole other world happening here if you don't know to look at it or like haven't read the book.
There is so much that happens. I was trying to wiki my way through today to make sure I had caught everything because it's just so much all the time. And excellent show.
Rich.
Very good to know about Corliss.
Yeah. He's sweet. Yeah. I like him.
Yeah. But what about your socio-political moments? What did you clock this week socio-politically?
Okay. I have 3. One is the Maori culture. Very cool. Yes. We're in New Zealand, friends. Yes, we love it.
That was so cool.
Loved the date itself. Loved how it was structured. Loved how much they showed of it. Loved how much we learned about the culture. Kiaura means hi, hello, and thank you. So it's the first and last words of the day, they said. I loved that. Kiaura. It gives us something we can sort of hold on to. And well done. I thought that Devin was a good participant mostly. I would say like 99%. The one moment where I was like, was when he said in his speech at the end, he said, I hope we can continue to make you proud. What the fuck?
Yeah. Weird thing to say.
A little much. So, but everything else he said was great. And I also thought it was endearing that he sat down and looked at her like, I just blacked out. I don't know what just happened. Like, essentially was what he did. Yeah, he's like, I don't know what that was. So that was cute. Oh, that was endearing. So I loved it. Great date. Love.
Fantastic.
And as you brought up, so juxtaposed against the Sam date. Very well put. So true. So my next socio-political moment is also about Devin, and it's also about Sam mean, because what the fuck with their blaccent? When they get fighting, they both have a blaccent, and it's actually weird. Both of them. But it's
I noticed
Sam
it was
way
Sam
more
M
so.
more, and I was like,
way
what are
more.
you doing? But you're right that Devin's kind of doing it too.
He like dips a toe. He dips a toe. It's almost like he dips a toe and then recognizes it because he also dials it back. Sam goes all the way in, and it's when he's angry.
So cringe.
It's when he's angry and aggressive. So talk about fucking fully associating Black culture with being angry. Like, what the fuck? It's so bad. It is so bad. It's disgusting, actually. I hate it. It's too much. I can't deal with it. He needs to do better. That's something that is not an edit. No one edits you to talk that way. No one is editing you.
No.
And you are white as snow, so stop the madness. I can't.
He's done it twice. It's been multiple times that he's done that, and it is so weird and gross.
I might even say 3 times. I think it might have been 3 times because it was every time he's been upset. Yeah, it's every time he's been upset, and he's been upset about 3 times. I think there was one early on where I clocked it, and I was like, wow, I'm going to hope that's not like what happened there. And so like I gave him a little leeway. The second time I saw it, I was like, oh my God. And then this time when it was the 2 of them in the hotel, I was like, good fucking God. Like, what are you doing? Like, stop. I can't.
I hate it. Weird.
I hate it. And it, like the whole thing, right? Like when Sam Mean gets to go on the one-on-one, Devin says to camera, he was like really upset about it. He's like, I don't even know where I am on the one-on-one scene. Like, and Sam gets to go, like, blah, 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 blah. And I wrote in my notes, like, thank the gods, in parentheses and S. I was like, thank your god or gods that you're not on a 2-on-1, because that was the alternative. You could have been put on a 2-on-1, and what if you went home? Because they have all that sexual chemistry. And then I realized this is kind of the next best thing to a 2-on-1, because the producers got to put them in a room together alone.
Yes, that's so true. And see them just...
Mm-hmm.
And it might mean that they're both going to go the distance on this show, which kind of sucks.
Yeah, I'm hoping Sam M will get the boot soon. I can't stand it. I cannot stand watching him. I need him to go. I'm hoping she'll see through it. So actually, this relates to my third thing. So this is about Jenn, and she's gotten criticism. I've heard it on a couple of podcasts about, for one, it's like sort of sounding very like Bachelorette-y, like having a very like polished Bachelorette way of talking. By the way, all Bachelorettes do, but that's been a criticism I've heard. Yep. Another was not standing. I know. Another was not standing up for herself. So, for example, around Sam N. So Sam Nice said, "I love you" on Earth. I'm falling for you on an episode. And one of my podcasts brought up, like, well, whenever that's happened in the past, she's just sent him straight home. Actually, what I've seen in the past is sometimes they'll keep them for a week and send them home the next week, because then that way they're not punishing people for saying "I love you," which is probably smart.
Right.
So sure enough, she sent him right home this week, because last week was when he said "I love you." So she did exactly what I think is appropriate, by the way. But she got some flack for not standing up for herself. And then the third, no, those are the two complaints. So my point is the third thing. No,
I don't like that.
So,
I disagree with that.
Yeah, right. I think any feedback for her about standing up for herself is misplaced, because so there's two things about this. Like, so I'm thinking about her cultural background as an Asian woman. So one is all Asian folks have a socio-political, I would say, like social and cultural pull to what's called keep face. It's like literally a phrase used for Asian folks for trying to stay polished and stay, calm, but also try to protect the shame of their family and to not bring any shame on their family. So of course she's very Bachelorette-y. The not standing up for herself. The other thing is Asian women in particular are expected to be demure and quiet. And there is like such a stereotype, historically, of them needing to be quiet and not express how they feel. And so that piece for me is also related to her being an Asian woman. And then the other piece is invisibility. So there's all these racist views towards Asian folks of them not like we forget who it is, or we confuse two Asian people or whatever it might be because of this invisibility piece that is a part of their experience in the US. So all three of those things make me a little bit worried about that kind of a narrative. I would say, like, I felt the same way about Sam as well, Sam Mean, where like I was like, but she saw it, and then she like changed her mind. I think the other piece that could be at play there, like in terms of her standing up for herself, I think is a problem. Like I don't think she's very good at it because of this stereotype of Asian women needing to be quiet. I don't think she's very good at standing up for herself to someone like Sam Mean. But then also I was thinking about her dad, right? Like if her history with her dad is feeling unloved, and then he shows her a moment of loving her, her instinct is going to be to see it as good, because it's like, first of all, it might be better than her dad ever did, right? Like, so then even just a moment of Sam M being like, oh, you're okay. Like she could have been like, oh, thank God, like you're not just like my dad or whatever. So then I could see her overvaluing any cues in the opposite direction. So I think both of those things could be at play. And yet also I was like, get it. I was so excited when she was like, he's not even caring. He's not asking. He's not reading the room. He's not. I was like, you're damn straight. You're exactly right. And I hope that you carry some of those tidbits in with you into the future. I hope she at least carries it with her. If she couldn't stand up for herself in those moments and keep it with her then, I hope in the future she can use those to stand on as a part of her foundation for recognizing the problems with Sam M.
Well said. I didn't know she was getting any sort of like criticism for her.
It's not public.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I don't think it's public criticism. It was in a podcast, and of women of color talking about it, and one of them later walked it back a little bit, which is good. I think it's a common criticism of bachelorettes that they're sort of polished or too polished. So I don't think that's surprising. And also I think that's one of the criticisms I would push back against specifically for her. But yeah, the standing up for herself too, that one I think is a little bit more of the public view, like the way that she was about Sam, for example, Sam N. Jesus, it is both Sams, isn't it? That one I think is more common. I think a lot of people will feel that way. And I get it. And I also think it's something that we should also like have as a like both and. It's like yes and also. It makes sense. Yeah.
Totally.
And her dad's stuff. Oh, poor thing. Not poor thing. That's awful. I don't want to infantilize, but like, oh, I feel terribly for how her relationship with her dad has affected her.
It sounds
so
awful. It was, yeah. And I really am glad she felt comfortable sharing it with Devin a little more.
Yeah, and us. You know, we all learned from it a little bit. I love it.
Yes.
So tell me yours.
Mine,
sociopolitical.
One is that Jenn is, in my knowledge, and I did a little research, I believe she's the first Buddhist bachelorette, which is really cool.
Amazing. I love it when she brought the Buddhism.
Yeah. And I'm so glad that she feels comfortable enough sharing that. And I'm thinking maybe I'm making assumptions about Sam M, but I'm like, interesting that you're sharing nothing about your culture with him, but because how do you think it's going to be received? I don't know how he will internalize her Buddhism. I don't know. She would have never taken him on this date. Just not in a million years. And that is information, in my opinion.
Yes. Also, just really quickly, I feel like if she said, I'm Buddhist, what do you think about that? He'd be like, doesn't relate to me at all. I'm fine. I'm good with everything. It has nothing to do with me. You know, I feel like that would be his reaction. It's like anything that's not about him, actually, even if it's expected for him to be like accepting of it, his way of it being accepting is to be like, I don't care. Everything's fine. You know, it's like.
But will later make her go to like a Christian church or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. It will be so unrelated to him that he'll forget about it. When she brings it up again later, he'll be like, oh, we're going to a Christian place, because he just forgets. Because he doesn't care. If it's not about him, it doesn't matter.
Absolutely. Very well said. My second thing, which I am now walking back, is I was so excited about Rhaenyra and Mysaria's kiss. However, I agree with you. I wish it would have been under a different context. And they could have done that same very steamy kiss without as much of the abuse of power.
I loved it too, though. You're so right. It was such a good moment. Yeah.
Man.
Good moment without the context.
Good moment with some growth edges, I would say.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yes. All right.
So, okay. Those are your two. I love it. Here we go. We're going into another or. Here we are, or category. We have two. We have two left, and then, because the other thing is we're going to still do the top 3 men, but we're doing it as part of our awards ceremony, friends. Don't forget, we're doing our top 3 Bachelorette men as part of our award ceremony. So we have 2 left right now. So second to last, this is an or. A, this is something we raised, and that, no, we did not. This is something that was raised in the episodes that we as psychologists wish more people knew about, or we could think of it as this is something that we thought people would mention the next day, but they didn't, even though it's important.
Yes. So I am choosing to focus on, and Connor brought this up, my partner, as well. So this is not my original idea, but I thought it was a really good one. So I'm using it. The villainization of people with disabilities on House of Dragon is a little weird. It's because I'm forgetting his name, the guy who does
Aegon and Laris.
The torture guy.
With the clubfoot.
Yeah, it's like he does torture things. And I think they walked it back a little with maybe like him talking to Aegon and being like, you need your mind now. But why does using one's mind then have to be associated with like doing really shitty things to people and engaging in violence? It feels, and then even Aemon, who only can see out of one eye, like he's, I think, unequivocally not a great character. Doing some not so great shit. I would say like Aegon, I would say if we're doing a hierarchy of evilness, I think he certainly has some bad instincts. Out of the two of them, I would prefer Aegon as a king over Aemon. I think Aegon has a little more humanness. There's like something there that feels a little more, he's got like some ego stuff, but some of Aemon's stuff. Yeah, like exactly. Fool, kind of. That's probably the trope, which I don't know. But he also, like the scene with the villagers when he like seemed to genuinely care and had that walked back. So there's some like humanity there. Totally. Aemon, it makes me very nervous, but it's like also why are we really villainizing? Like both of these characters are, I would say, more in the villain edit, right? And they're both people with disabilities, so it's a weird kind of vibe they're doing with that. So thank you, Connor, for noticing that.
I would even add to that, like, Laris has always been a bad guy. I will say, I think he's headed towards a good guy edit. Like, I think
agree.
we're starting to see Laris as maybe coming around, but in the meantime, he's been a bad guy. And like the King of Whispers or whatever, too, the Lord of Whispers. I would also say, I think Aegon, in his Fool edit, what I liked about him becoming disabled is that it shows the idea that any of us can become disabled at any time. And that is true. So stigmatizing people with disabilities is always a bad idea. You could be there tomorrow, you know, and not that that makes it okay to stigmatize anything, obviously, but in many ways, we're all a step away from that at any time. So I like that part of it. The other thing I think that is disturbing about it, in addition to him being a bit of a villain, is that they're also, I think, trying to make us feel bad for him. And that is the other trope and stereotype of disabilities, is to be like, oh, you poor thing, like, you can't even live for yourself, or like, oh, you must want to die rather than having to live like that, or whatever. There's this sort of like pulling on another stereotype of disability, not just villainizing, but also the like pity. It's shitty.
It is. They're not doing. And Connor said this too. I'll give him a lot of credit. He said that on House of Dragon, he feels like they're getting away with a lot of some lazy tropes. He likes it too, but the whorehouse,
absolutely.
The whorehouse, there's a bit of like Orientalism there. And again, I'm trying to give him his credit because I think he picks up on this stuff because he's a very literary mind. And it's a really fucking good show.
Right.
And I think what you
both
pointed out, yeah, exactly. Both are true. But the villainization of people with disabilities is a little tough.
Yeah. No, it is. And I think the good thing about things like us doing this podcast right now, go us, the good thing about this is like what's okay about shows being like that is that we talk about it. If we're talking about the problems with it, then people can learn from the show making that mistake, you know, and that's better than canceling it.
Totally. Absolutely. I don't want this show canceled. Please make so
do
much
it.
More of this show.
Yes, exactly. Let us learn from it. Exactly.
But what about you, Dr. K? What is your or? I'm not going to read it.
No, you're good. You're good. I think I woke up thinking everyone was going to be talking about it being a plant. I was like so sure. I like checked all my podcasts. I was like, people are going to be talking about this. Everyone must agree. And I just didn't find that. So that was interesting. That was something I thought people would talk about the next day that they didn't. And that I think is kind of important. Like, I think that's important, that I think Matt is a bigger plan. I heard a couple podcasts even saying, I don't think he's going to get to stay, which again is possible if she decides she has better connections with who's there. But I think he was always planned to stay. If she was always planned to have the choice to let him stay, in my opinion. So, I don't know. She might let him. The other thing is that I heard people saying what I mentioned earlier about like this notoriously doesn't work out. And I just don't agree with that, since Katie Thurston had a different experience. Granted, if Greg had stayed, would she have stayed with Greg? Maybe. But yeah.
I'm so excited now just to watch this all play out. It's so interesting.
Which they knew either way that it was going to get us hooked, and they were damn right. It was a refreshing, different thing.
Damn it. But what is something we have mentioned previously?
I think Sam Mean can be like a permanent, a permanent item for the things we've mentioned previously, because he just keeps getting worse. He just could not even surprise me less, honestly. So fucking textbook. The other thing I would say is the Marcus thing. I just felt like Marcus is continuing to do well, too. I love Marcus. He's such a delight, and I just feel like he's really showing up. My husband saw very little of the show, but just the moment he saw was just a screenshot, basically, of Marcus, and I explained that Marcus had been through trauma, and he was like, oh, no, like, that means he's going to be, like, a rough and tumble kind of guy. Not rough and tumble, but like in rough shape, essentially, and have a lot of trauma. And I told him, I was like, you know what? I don't think so. I think he's been through a long healing process on his own, like quite literally on his own. But he decided to not date for years, And so I think he's actually done a lot of healing. I think he is ready. And so I actually do think he has continued to shine. I love it.
Yay.
Oh, the way he handled the Sam Nice shit. I was like, yes. Yeah, that's all you got to say.
Sweet. Yes. Oh. We love Marcus.
I know. He is so sweet. I'm a delightful fan of Marcus. I think he'd be a great bachelor if we don't end up. Yeah, he'd be a delight. I want someone to talk about his ethnic background. Is he just white? Like, I don't think so. I think there's something else going on.
I agree.
I don't know why we're not talking about it. So I would like to hear that at some point. But how about you? What is something you have mentioned previously, or that you noticed that we've mentioned previously, I should say?
This is a bit of a leap. Okay. So remember Jesse Lally or whatever his name is from the Valley in his ego death tripping?
Yes.
Shit.
Yes.
So I am making a comparison to that whole vibe to what happens with Damon in this respite place he goes where he keeps like tripping and having all these weird hallucinations. And I'm like, is this Damon's ego death? Because I think the vibe, at least from the episodes I've seen, is he's trying to decide if he's going to try to become the king or if he's going to support Rhaenyra. And it's just a bit of the same sort of thing. And when I thought of it from that perspective, it really made me laugh. And it just keeps going on. I'm like, why does this still it was like one episode and I was like, okay, this is like but they're still doing it. He's still in his weird ego death moment. And it just reminded me of Jesse from the Valley and continues to make me giggle. So that is my it's a bit of a leap.
I love it. No, that's great. That's a great comp. Like, what a great comparison. And I would say, like, I think the whole point with Damon too is that Alice or Elise is helping him. Like, I think she's a part of his hallucinations. She's helping him have an ego death. So I think you're so right. Like, I do think that's what it's about. And I think she, in her sort of like therapist witchy way, is trying to like bring him out of like wanting the crown. Because if you want the crown, you don't deserve it. You know.
Yeah.
So
I loved when she said that.
So good. And it makes me think that like maybe she is trying to get him ready to take the crown essentially because maybe she wants him to get it and she'll be underneath him and get to go to power too because in her mind, because she is sort of through ego death, he would be more appropriate as a leader. And so I don't know. There's something about the fact she's helping him where I'm like, is she helping him so that he'll go back to Rhaenyra or is she helping him so he'll become king and then she's number 2 or, you know,
oh my God,
some sort of like, I know, some exciting pieces there.
Oh, I love that. I didn't even think of that, but that could totally be the vibe. Oh, it's fun. It's kind of silly. It makes me giggle. It's kind of, it goes to some weird, wonky, wacky places, but
they all make sense to me. I love it. Like, no, they are weird and wonky for sure. It also like all makes sense to me as part of the ego death. Like, you're so right. Like, each one of those connects to that, even though they're fucking weird. Like, they are like dreams, like how our dreams in manifest content are so out of this world. And yet like the latent content, like what the message is that our psyche is trying to work on is so connected to what we're anxious about in real life. So I love it.
I never felt like more of a psychologist when he was having sex with his mother before we knew it was his mom. And I'm like, that's his mom.
Yeah, I did too. I did the same thing. I did the exact same thing. I was like, he's fucking his mom. It's gotta be.
Yep, that's what's happening right now. And we were right.
Oedipal fucking complex. Oedipal complex. Yep. And then there was also Viserys's wife, right? Was there something about that?
Oh, yeah.
Is that a separate thing? There's something else about Viserys's wife too. That was interesting. I don't know. Yeah, there's a lot of good content.
It's wonky, but Damon is Jesse Lally from the Valley. Actually, no, I don't totally feel that way, but
no,
the ego death
Jesse would be
thing.
So lucky. Jesus,
yeah, to be Matt Smith, to be a dragon slayer or whatever the fuck they call him, like
a dragon slayer and a dragon rider, and then also. The other thing I was going to say is because you know what I love about his character is what the producers say. I guess it's also probably in the book, frankly, but about how he's equal parts villain and hero. I love that.
Totally
I love that.
is.
It's just like a trope. Yeah, it's so good. It's so rich. What a rich character.
Oof, it totally is. Oh, you're right. We love it.
Isn't that cool? It's not a good vibe when you think about it that way. You're like, yeah, that's totally what it is. He's like you never know. You never know which one you're going to get and which way he's going to go. And yet ultimately he's always sympathetic or I'm sympathetic to him because even in his villain parts, he's operating off of what he knows. I mean, he's, you know, it's like no matter what, I find it just kind of sad when he's more villainous, you know?
I agree.
I don't know. Pitiable.
Yeah. Go Matt Smith. He's doing a great job with that character. Yes. Come on our podcast.
I know, right? We're buttering you up to come on our very small grassroots podcast. Please do.
About reality television.
Yeah, right. Just like we did a like little rest stop on the House of Dragons. Couldn't even get the fucking title right. But please come.
Oh my goodness. Well, this has been an absolute delight. It's been a blast.
It surely has. And next week we'll do the finale episode with y'all. And then we will be doing, actually, why don't we say this too? In 2 weeks, I'll be doing a solo pod while Dr. Ray is in London, England.
Seeing T
Very
Swift.
exciting.
Yes.
Very fun. What a fun way to do T-Swift. A delight. So we will be looking forward to hearing all about that as well when you get back. And I think I'll do a little bit of a Big Brother sidebar as we talked about, just because that is not Dr. Ray's vibe. And I do like Big Brother. So we'll do a little sidebar there and also still talk about Bachelorette. And come see us on social medias. The social medias game is flowing. So we've got on Instagram at Dr. Ray Pods and at Dr. K Pods. Then you might find us also on Facebook at the Facebook page of Reality Test Pod. Same exact handle for YouTube at Reality Test Pod, all one word, however, whereas the Facebook page is not an at or handle. And then we would also mention that we have TikTok at Dr. Realitv, REALITV, and you can also find all of this information at the bottom of our social media, or any episode, I should say, any episode text. You will see it there. And there is something that will help us the most.
Yes, download us. Please download us. Do it. I dare you.
Please do help us and delete it after if you need to, but you're going to like it so much you're going to keep it. And that's just how that's going to roll, because we're going to manifest it. And yeah, what a gosh darn delight. It's been a joy and a pleasure, and we hope you all enjoyed it as well. And we will see you next session.
Bye.
Bye.